Hey, good afternoon, everybody. How are you? This is Freddie Ewan, three-time GM of the Year 2022 TPFF KEL Pantheon Cup champion. Hope everyone is having a wonderful Saturday. This is what I love about the NFL is, we have the NBA playoffs going on. We just got done with March Madness. Congratulations to the Florida Gators. Stanley Cup playoffs is going on right now. Baseball just got started up, but the NFL still seems to make an impact all year long. A couple weeks from now, we're going to have the schedule come out, which is going to be big news. But, of course, the biggest news of the NFL offseason is always the NFL draft. A little bit different this year than last year when it comes to fantasy football. Fantasy football was a big offensive draft last year. Lots of quarterbacks taken. Five of the first picks were quarterbacks. Was not quite like this time. Some wide receivers last time: Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas. All huge fantasy impact last year. This draft, not as much, but I think that we're going to find in this draft more than anything is the running back world is going to be heavily impacted in fantasy football based on this draft. There are probably about maybe 9 or 10 running backs that have a chance in this draft to have some fantasy impact. And we're going to go over that quickly with you guys. Let me see if I can share my screen here, get everything up. First thing we're going to talk about is let's talk a little about the impact of the draft. Three guys really here, running backs that were really unfazed by the draft. First guy is Chase Brown. Bengals did not draft any running backs. Pretty much saying that we're going to stick with Chase Brown. Chase Brown had an excellent finish last year. And he's going to be their guy in Cincinnati. Cincinnati has, they signed T. Higgins. They gave Jamar Chase, who might be the #1 overall pick, the largest contract for a wide receiver. So the Bengals offense is here. And, if they score points, you always want to get a running back that scores a lot of points. Chase Brown is going to do that. I think he's going to be either in a draft, he's probably going to be end of the first round, maybe early second round pick. Other guy we want to talk about is Brian Robinson. Once again, the Commanders, the surprise team of last year really put a lot of Jaden Daniels really put up a lot of points last year. They stuck with Robinson. Eckler did not really work out too much over there, and he's on kind of the edge of his career. But Washington drafts a offensive tackle in the first round. Josh Connerly, something they need that's going to improve their running game and their offense. They did take a running back in the seventh round. Jay Curry Cross said, I don't think he's going to make that much of an impact, but Robinson's probably going to stay as the #1 back in Washington, get a lot of carries. The other guy, of course, injury prone as we know, but this is a guy that can really break the plane is Devin Archain. We got Mozart out of there. I'm not sure where he went, but he's old anyway. Miami doesn't really, Miami drafts an offensive guard in the second round. They do get a running back late, Ollie Gordon in the sixth round, but once again, I think this is going to be a change chance. Whether the quarterback situation in Miami, whether Tua is going to hold up or not, is always remains in question. But I think a chain is, another guy, especially in a PPR league, he's going to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield and get great yards. Going to Here's our veteran running backs, which had a little bit of impact on the draft. Thought these guys were going to be better, but the draft definitely had an effect on them. See if we can bring this up. The first guy is Tyrone Tracy. Tracy was, really at the end of the year, Tracy was a great guy to have on fantasy rosters. And, he did not spell Saquon Barkley in New York, but, really looked like a guy who was going to be a solid running back. And that could still be said for Tracy, but the New York Giants, I think, had a phenomenal draft. They get Abdul Carter, who could be change the defense almost like a Micah Parsons for the Cowboys. They get Jackson Dart late in the first round. They trade up for him. They're going to get to put him on the bench for a little while and see how their veterans play out. The Giants are going to have a little bit better offense than last year, but the big guy that they drafted, fourth round, they took him, Cam Skidabo. Skidabo is an interesting player. He is the first guy since Christian McCaffrey actually to have 1,500 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards. And I really think that Tracy did a solid job, but I really think that Skidabo is going to get some opportunities here. If you are looking for a running back, definitely the guy. On the other side of things, Jaylen Warren. So Jaylen Warren, it looked like everything was going for him. Najee Harris moved out, went over to the Chargers, and looked like Warren was going to be the number one guy. They got my backup Eagles running back on Steelers too, but in the third round they take Caleb Johnson. Johnson is a big runner, big back. Think almost 6'1", 224 pounds. I don't know if he's Jerome Bettis type for the Steelers, but he is definitely going to be the opportunity to be the number one guy too over Jaylen Warren. That's another guy that, keep your eye on. And, a lot of these running backs, you think, that you get these rookie running backs and rookies in general, too. They really don't start, the rookie running backs especially don't really start coming around until the second half of the season. But if you stash them and keep them on your roster somehow, they can really turn into gems. The other guy is Travis Etienne. Etienne was, pretty much probably the one of the biggest fantasy busts last year. Tank Bigsby was behind. He got some things with Jacksonville, but Jacksonville has really, really, really focused on this draft. They get Travis Hunter. He is going to be a beast. I don't know what they're going to do with Hunter. I know he's going to be a defensive back. Hunter can play wide receiver. He can also play running back. Hunter can run. So, that's going to take out of ATN as well as Tank Bigsby. They also get a running back in the fourth round, which his name is Bashal Tutin. Tutin is a little guy. He's 5'9", 206 pounds from Virginia Tech, but the guy ran for over 2,000 yards. He's certainly going to get an opportunity. So these guys are really wounded by the NFL draft. I think there might be roster spots for them in 12 and 14 team leagues, but big wound. And then let's go over quickly. We're going to go over to the guys, the big losers, the big running back vet losers. Raheem Mostert, we just talked about him on the Dolphins. He had went over to the Raiders. Of course, everyone knows who the Raiders got with the 6th pick. He is the highest running back taken since the Giants took Saquon with number 2. Ashton Jeanty is going to be, he is going to be, he might even be a top 5 pick. He's definitely going in the first round in a ton of drafts. He's probably going to be the number one dynasty guy to have right now, the third overall ranked player in the draft. He's got 2,601 yards in 2024. Did just a phenomenal job in Boise State. Really compared to Alvin Kamara, you can catch out of the backfield. Mostert, kind of on the edge of his throne. Mostert is a guy who could score a lot of touchdowns. I mean, I think he led the NFL in touchdowns a few years ago, but he is really on his way out. And the next guy that we're going to talk about, which kind of a shocker, is I know that the Los Angeles Chargers, Jim Harbaugh is a guy who loves to get his balls to running backs. Najee, not that great of a year with Pittsburgh. He moved over to the Chargers, got a contract, and was really going to get an opportunity with the Chargers to play. To play and be Najee again. I think Najee was a first round pick. He might have been a second round pick, but I know that Najee was up there. But the Chargers, what the Chargers go ahead and do, and this is my favorite guy coming out just on the situation that he is in. And I think he's going to be, a big chance for Rookie of the Year or top offensive Rookie of the Year, is Omarion Hampton. Hampton is out of North Carolina. He was drafted in the first round by the Chargers. Has a ton of power, 6 foot, 221 pounds, quickness, speed. This guy is going to be overlooked big. People are going to look like at GD much more than they're going to look at this guy. But, it might be another Martin Harrison, Malik Neighbors situation where, everyone was going after Harrison last year and Malik Neighbors turned out to be the guy that you wanted from the rookie wide receivers. The other guy, Ramondre Stevenson. Stevenson had an awful year last year. I think he led the NFL in fumbles. People had just really given up on him at the end of the year. And what New England did is New England goes ahead and they get Will Campbell, offensive tackle. Fourth overall pick. He was the first tackle taken. I don't know if he's going to be the best tackle in the NFL, but he is he's going to be a solid tackle. Hopefully, I think the guy that Jets got was a little bit better. But in the second round, they draft Traven Henderson. Henderson is one of the two guys from Ohio State. And I think that there's going to be no doubt that Henderson's going to be the number one guy over Stevenson. Stevenson just had too many fumbles last year, did not run the ball well, and really going to be, I think Stevenson's on his way out. I don't even think I would not draft Ramondre Stevenson right now. I would not draft Harris, and I would definitely not draft Moats right now. I would not even have them in the lineup. I think you're going to see them in a lot of free agencies. Just to talk about a couple other guys, we're going to have another show on this, but with a couple guests, but I just want to talk about a couple things where a couple guys who benefited a little bit too. Who another running back that was a winner is everyone thought the Chicago Bears were going to maybe draft a running back early. There was talk, I didn't think that G.D. was going to slip to 10, but if he did, it was certain that the Bears were going to grab him. DeAndre Swift did a very good job with the Philadelphia Eagles 2 years ago. Did not play that great with Chicago. It looked to me like Chicago was going to, go out and get a running game. But they drafted a great tight end. They drafted a great wide receiver. They have a drafted an offensive tackle. Really went offense. Ben Johnson, the new coach over there, who did a phenomenal job as the offensive coordinator with the Detroit Lions. And the Bears are going to be stacked. I mean, I think that the Bears are going to be stacked, and with Burden and Loveland, and they still have a Dunze, and really giving Williams the opportunity to shine. They put some offensive line behind him in free agency, and Swift is going to have an opportunity to score a lot of points too. I think with the Chicago Bears, I think the Chicago Bears are going to put up a lot of offense. I really do. Going to some other guys, let's just jump on a couple things that I wanted to talk about. I want to get to all the running backs at a separate point, but we're just going to make this the running back show, I guess. Here's another guy that I really like a lot. Another winner in this draft is R.J. Harvey. R.J. Harvey goes to the Denver Broncos. There was talk about them going and getting Hampton in the first round. They did not do that. They ended up getting Harvey in the second round. Harvey is a kind of a surprise for a second rounder. They had him as the 11th pick overall. He's a little guy, but he's bulky, 5'8", 205. I can tell you that, with the way Bo Nix was playing, that coach Sean Payton that they have in Denver right now, there's going to be an opportunity for Harvey really to be the number one running back. I know the guy Williams, who played for, the Broncos for 3 or 4 years, everyone thought he was going to be phenomenal or do a great job. I think he might have been a first or second round pick too, but he really turned out to be nothing. He's down in Dallas now. So Harvey is pretty much going to be the man in Denver. He's definitely a guy to draft, and you could probably pick him up in some later rounds too. Let me see if I can get to one more before we let you go. Quinshon Judkins, another winner. So this was really interesting with the third and fourth best overall running backs in the draft were from Ohio State. Ohio State, of course, had a great season, but just to give you a little bit on Judkins is Cleveland has a little bit of a I think they have 5 different quarterbacks. They took Shedeur Sanders. It's gonna be interesting. I don't think Cleveland is going to put up a lot of points. I don't know if this guy is going to get what it is, but I can tell you that Nick Chubb, everyone thought Nick Chubb was going to make a comeback. Nick Chubb is done. Jerome Ford really didn't make, Jerome Ford was kind of give and take. He had a couple good games, but Judkins definitely is going to have a chance to really shine with Cleveland. He's compared to Joe Mixon, he was the fourth best running back overall, has a broad jump, 6 foot, 221 pounds, Ohio State. He's probably going to be the number one guy in Cleveland for this. And these are some of those sleepers that you're going to want to keep your eye on. Big running back draft. We're going to make this a little bit of a 3-part series, this NFL draft for you, but this was pretty, pretty great draft when it comes to running backs. I think that when we look back at this, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of thing out of the quarterbacks. Who knows what Cam Ward's going to be, but I don't think he's going to be anywhere compared to the almost 3 or 4, maybe 5 quarterbacks taken last year. I think Cam would have been, maybe the 5th or 6th when it comes to it. Same thing with wide receivers. There's a couple decent wide receivers we're going to talk about. One goes in the top 10. McMillan goes over to Carolina. A couple late round wide receivers in the first round. There were a lot in the second and third, but this was really not a big wide receiver draft. Really not a big quarterback draft. But this is definitely the draft where you are going to be able to find some running backs, and you're going to be able to find some keeper running backs for Dynasty League. I shouldn't be sharing all of my secrets on the key to fantasy football, but of course, that's why I'm here. That's why I want the show. I think when I look for fantasy football more than anything, I look for people who are into it and competitive instead of people who are just like not paying attention to it. Even if you're losing, pay attention to fantasy football. You paid money for the league. That's why I am a proponent of more money, more expensive leagues. That's where you're going to get the guys who play. I think that it should be illegal to have $50 and $100 fantasy football leagues. It should be actually illegal and you should be fined. Anyway, that's my take. It's almost like playing poker for 1 cent, 2 cent. That's my take. I hope everyone has a great Saturday. We're gonna have a special guest. We're gonna have a big Giants fan. His name is Mike Dang on the show pretty soon. I played with him in the John Galt League, the ESPN League. Good guy, knows his stuff, likes to talk a lot. He's a Jersey guy, and us Jersey guys like to talk. But anyway, that's the show. Everyone have a great weekend and go Birdies, world champions, baby. Bye bye.